Hi, I'm Paul Germain, and welcome to another session of Smart Boating. You know, I started this show in August of 2006 to help you, the boater, make smarter decisions about things in the water so you could have more fun. And since that time, we've done just a real variety of shows. We've done shows on how to buy a new boat and a used boat, how to judge quality. We've done shows on different components, from propellers to electrical systems to upholstery. We've done shows on different types of boats. Electric boats, Coast Guard boats, wood boats. We've done shows with boat builders to show you how they actually build custom and wooden boats. And we've done shows on winterization and detailing, how to take care of your boat. And of course, we've done a lot of shows on safety, from working with NOAA on weather shows to the state police on man overboard shows. So that's a key element of keeping safe and having fun on the water. So we've done a lot of shows, and I'm proud to say that today is our 100th show. And we're particularly proud of that because of our ability to bring to you very valuable, informative shows done with experts in the field. So they're very authentic. They give you the practical information you can put to use out there in the water. So today's show format's going to be a little bit different. What we've done is we've gone back and we've selected clips from shows in the different years, the 6 years we've been doing the show, and we're going to show those too. First, I'm going to preview actually 2 years at a time, and then we're going to watch 4 clips, and we'll come back and do some more. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's get started. Well, we've got some interesting clips for you from 2006 and 2007. The first one is a clip from a show, How to Protect Your Boat in the Event of a Hurricane, which I did with Norm LeBlanc of Norm LeBlanc and Associates in Beverly, Mass. And our whole idea was to help people understand how to prepare for a big storm. The second clip is from a show on inboard-outboard winterization, which I did with Ralph Davey, who's a master marine technician at Gloucester Marina in Gloucester, Mass. And what we were trying to do is show what marine pros do when they winterize your unit to prevent any damage over the winter season. The next couple of clips are from 2007, and the first one was on U.S. Coast Guard boats, which I did with the U.S. Coast Guard personnel at U.S. Coast Guard Station Gloucester. And we were showcasing one of their new motor lifeboats. And finally, the last clip that we have is on boat surveys. And I did that one with Bob Gallagher of Gallagher Marine Associates in the Beverly area. And what we were trying to show there was some of the things that a marine surveyor does when he's checking out a boat prior to purchase. Now, there are 4 areas which are of particular importance. One is the storm surge, where the tides rise 10 feet above their normal level. The second thing, of course, is the winds, the high winds. The third thing is the waves. The waves they have fetch. In other words, when the storm surge comes up, the wind has a longer distance to push waves, which makes them much larger. So that's the third factor to be concerned with. And of course, the fourth factor is the rain. You can get 6 to 12 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So we've got 4 factors we've got to think about here with hurricanes. Do you have a couple points you want to share before we get started in terms of how a boater can prepare their boat for a storm like this?
Sure. There's several points we can bring out, and one of the most important is to never ride it out on your boat. After a hurricane has gone past, when they do the death toll of people who have died, over 50% of them are people who stayed aboard their boats, and they've never stood a chance. They thought they could ride out a storm, which is not a very good thing. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier about the fetch. The fetch is the distance of open water, just take a particular harbor. If it's open and exposed, that's the fetch. In normal days, you could have maybe a 1-foot chop on a harbor and a 20-mile-an-hour wind. Mm-hmm. But in a hurricane, that fetch can be 3 to 6 foot waves with gusting strong winds. Wow. The other key another point is to plan ahead. And plan ahead meaning where you keep your boat, check if it's a marina, find out if the marina has a hurricane plan. Most of them do, whether you stay in the marina or whether you have to leave the marina. Mm-hmm. And if you have to leave the marina, then you have to make alternative plans. And don't wait until the hurricane season starts to make these plans. I think you really want to plan it in the winter months and find out where you can take your boat in a safe place.
Let me just talk a little bit about, after greasing these here, the other thing to contend with or consider would be you need to take and remove this outdrive here at least once every other year.
Okay.
And the reason for that is back inside here that you can't see where the transom of the boat is, there's a big bearing. It's called a gimbal bearing. And there's a grease fitting on the side where you can grease that. But the problem is, over a period of time, you never know whether or not that bearing is becoming worn unless something really lets go, and then there would be a loud noise, or if you turn the steering wheel of the boat to one side or the other side, you might get a substantial noise, which could be worn universal joints or possibly a worn gimbal bearing, or both, or some other problem. In addition to that, every year you need to inspect the rubber bellows assembly that covers the universal joints. Now obviously you can do that visually every year, but then when you pull the outdrive off, you can visually inspect it on the outside, as also inspect on the inside of the bellows.
Okay.
If there's any water on the inside of the bellows, you know that you've got leakage, you've got a problem with the rubber bellows assembly.
This is the 47-foot motor lifeboat that we're going to be going on first. This boat has quite a history behind it in terms of earlier lifeboats that were designed, 36 foots in particular. This one's an all-aluminum hull, and I'm sure we're going to learn more from our Coast Guard host, but it's a really strong and powerful boat. This is your 47-footer. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It's about 48 feet, actually.
About 48, okay.
About 14 feet wide, drafts about 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
It'll handle seas up to 30 feet, winds up to 50 knots. It can tow about 150 tons.
Wow.
It can self-right itself, self-bailing. It's a pretty sturdy boat, something you want to be out in if you're going to be out in the bad weather.
Yeah. When did they start making these? Late 70s?
I believe it was 97. Is when
97.
They started
97. Yeah.
putting them out. Yeah.
And there's what are there, about 117 of these out there now, or is it higher than that?
I'm not sure the exact number now, but I think they're shooting for 200.
Yeah.
Is the goal.
So this is the primary boat if the seas are really, really rough. This is the boat you want to be out in, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one will keep you safe out there.
Yeah, great. And that rollover, that's the particularly kind of unique part of it, right? The fact that it can go through a complete rollover.
Yes.
And how long does it take to right itself?
8 to 12 seconds.
8 to 12 seconds.
Yeah.
And what do you do in the meantime?
Hold your breath.
Bob, I notice you're hammering on the top sides here, and you've got a meter in your hand.
Yeah, this meter will tell me if there's any moisture in the laminates. Moisture can come from inside if there was a leaking component that got through the hull skin on the inside. There is a joint under this rub rail where the two hulls meet. The outer hull and the inner hull usually have an overlapping joint. If it was loose anywhere and water from rain or spray or even washing the boat down got underneath there, it's going to show up in these in the end of the top of the outer hull. So the moisture meter will tell me if there's any leaks there.
Okay, so first the hammer and then the moisture meter's that extra level of kind of check.
Yep. I mean, years ago they didn't have moisture meters, so you just went by the hammer. The hammer is a great tool if a problem exists. The moisture meter will give you an indication if there's a problem coming. The laminates and a lot of these boats have wood cores, balsa cores, sometimes foam cores, which can hold a lot of moisture before they start rotting, which would show up with the hammer. This can tell you, the moisture meter can tell you if there's a leak starting, but it hasn't progressed to a problem yet. So it's a nice way to catch a problem.
Well, here are some interesting clips from shows that we shot in 2008 and 2009. The first one is on hull refinishing that I did with Jody Wilkerson of Wilco Marine up in Newbury, Mass. And the reason for that show was a lot of people were experiencing chalking on their fiberglass boats, and we thought we'd help people understand why that's occurring and what to do about it. The second show was on docking, which I did with Captain Ron Morin of Captain Ron's powerboat instruction training in Manchester, Mass. And we felt that people could use some help understanding how to dock easier. So that was the thinking behind that show. The next show we did was on trailer operation. I did that one with Mike Rodden of Northeast Marine. And the idea behind that show that we filmed out there in Springfield, Mass. was to help people understand, again, an easy way to handle their trailer on the boat ramp. And the final show in that period was a show we did called Getting Back In, which I did with Dick Winskowitz of the United States Power Squadron. And the idea behind that one was that oftentimes the visibility decreases when you're out there on the water, and you need a way to get back in safely. So in that clip, we're going to show you some techniques to do that.
Let's look at the reasons why chalking and fading happens.
Okay.
And you'll be able to see why buffing is a short-term fix.
Yep.
And there are 5 major reasons, and in my experience, that's what I think 5 major reasons are.
Okay.
And the first one is uncured temperature. It burns the gel coat from within.
All right.
And there's many reasons for this. This is a little model we have here.
Okay.
And what you do first is you gel coat this to about 20 mils thick.
All right.
And what happens is a lot of factories will puddle all along the transom area and the strakes and the chines.
Difficult to be even in all the areas.
Right, so then it gets to like 30 mils.
Okay.
And now that starts burning in those areas.
Oh, okay.
And that's a big problem.
All right, so that's the first reason that someone could end up with chalking down the road.
Right.
What's the next one?
Well, number 2 is heat buildup in the mold, and that
Okay.
usually comes from when you're doing laminating.
All right.
And here's a little boat that was done.
Okay.
And so first what they do is they'll skin out a boat with like an 1.5 ounce mat, and there's no problem there.
Okay, so they'll lay it in the mold.
Right.
Okay.
And what happens then is they start piggybacking the layers, which
Okay.
means multiple layers.
Layer upon layer.
Right, and they'll use knitted fabrics and different materials. And what it does is it traps the heat in because they're building too fast.
Okay.
And it needs to exotherm the styrene out of the mold. And what it does is it traps it in when you piggyback. So that's where you get the shrinkage and the burn.
We just talked about docking your vessel when the wind or the current is running parallel to the dock. And it looks like you've got another example of a different scenario here. Can you explain that to us?
Yes, Paul. In our first scenario where we had the 6th picture sequence, we had the wind blowing down the dock or parallel to it.
Yes.
And remember I mentioned we always want to dock into the wind or the current.
Right.
Now, there are 2 other situations.
Okay.
There's a situation where you might be approaching the dock and the wind is blowing you away from the dock.
Yes.
Now, depending if it's a real fresh wind, 10, 15 miles an hour, and if you have a boat already at the dock in front and a boat at this end of the dock, and this is where you want to dock, you can see where that aiming point is critical that you have to pick up.
Yes.
So, in this scenario, with the wind blowing off the dock, the operator would actually sometimes have to come in at almost a 90-degree angle, or perpendicular to the dock, because the wind's trying to blow them away.
Right.
When they get into this position here, and again about a half a boat length from the dock, this is when the engine the wheel would be turned towards the dock.
Okay.
The engine, the propeller would face the dock. They put it in reverse and pull the boat right in parallel to the dock. However, if it's a very strong wind, one might have to put their bow almost up to the dock, pass a bow line to someone on the dock, secure the bow line, and then pivot the boat around that dock line.
Right.
That's when the wind's blowing off.